Okay. Hi. So today is November 12th, 2020. The time is 1:41 p.m. So the current statistics for the number of confirmed cases and deaths for COVID-19 in the United States are as follows. So the total cases in the United States right now are at 10,170,846. The total deaths confirmed in the United States from coronavirus are 239,590. So those statistics for Wisconsin now, the total cases in Wisconsin are 301,000 confirmed and 2,562 total deaths have been confirmed. So now we will move it over to you. Can you tell me your name and do you mind sharing your demographic information such as your race, your age, and your gender?
I am Chase Augustson. I am Caucasian and male
Okay,
and 20.
21.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. What are the primary things you do on a day-to-day basis? For example, your job or your preferred activities?
I just work at FedEx and usually just work out or take a walk.
And have your job and those activities like walking around the neighborhood and things like that, have those been impacted by COVID-19 at all?
Yeah, just at work, we have to wear masks and stay 6 feet apart.
And has anybody had any issues doing that at your work as far as you know?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, has anybody at your work or your job had any issues maintaining the coronavirus standards like wearing a mask or social distancing?
Okay, no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Where do you live and what is it like to live there?
I live in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and it's pretty quiet. It's not that big of a city.
Okay. When you first learned about the coronavirus, what were your thoughts about it?
Mm, I didn't really know what to think about it. I just thought it was not that serious or it would ever affect me.
Do you remember when you first learned about it?
Somewhere in March, around that time.
Okay. And did you find out by the news or on social media, or how did you get that information?
Social media.
Social media. Okay. And what has changed with your thoughts since learning about the coronavirus in March? So from March to now in November, how has your thinking changed over
I,
time?
I definitely take it more seriously and try to stay away from social interactions.
And when did that shift start for you? When did you start to take it more seriously rather than thinking, oh, this might just go away?
Probably when Wisconsin got its like first couple of cases.
Okay. And how was that first lockdown for you?
It was pretty quiet. I didn't really do much, but I took it good.
Okay. Okay. So the next question I have for you is what issues have most concerned you about the COVID-19 pandemic, whether that be small, local things or just on a larger level?
Just the death rates. I don't know. Yeah, probably that's the main thing.
That's definitely understandable. So I know that you said you work at FedEx. Has COVID-19 affected your job in any ways other than social distancing or wearing masks or anything like that? Like, have any new policies been implemented as far as giving people time off if they do get sick or anything like that?
Yeah, people definitely, when they're sick, they're supposed to take 2 weeks to quarantine themselves.
Okay. And do
And I
you,
think that's the only thing, really. Sorry.
no problem. Do they have a way to make sure everybody who takes leave for coronavirus gets paid?
Yes, they do, only if you test positive.
And you have to send them those confirmation details as far as being tested positive for COVID-19?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. And is there anything else at your job that's changed, or is that pretty much it?
No, that's pretty much it, except for like the daily temperature checks and social distancing.
Yeah, when those were implemented, how did that make you feel, or how did that change your mind state at work?
I took it well because I thought it was a good idea to keep everyone safe and try to avoid all those situations.
Definitely understandable. Well, what concerns do you have about the effects of COVID-19 on the economy more broadly, just in the United States or even globally?
I definitely think it will harm it, but it's good to keep everyone away from each other while this is going on, considering the death rate that is present today.
And has COVID-19 changed your employment status in any ways? Like, have your hours been cut or maybe increased or anything like that?
No, they haven't been cut at all.
And going off of that, has the COVID-19 pandemic affected the employment of people that you know? And if it has, in what ways?
Probably just if you're sick, then you have to take that time off. And if you take it off and you test negative, you don't get paid. So I guess that was the one big thing.
Okay. And do you know anybody personally that that's happened to?
Myself.
Yourself? And how did that go for you?
It went well. I got paid for it because I was sick, but that was pretty much how that went.
Okay. And can you tell me what your experience was like with the coronavirus, the symptoms, how you felt when you were diagnosed with the coronavirus? Just take me through that whole process.
Pretty much felt like the flu, and I don't know. I just had to take some time off of work, and I don't know. Felt I don't know. I was puking a lot.
What other symptoms did you have?
Like I had a fever. My temperature definitely was up pretty high. Um, I couldn't taste or smell for a little while. That's kind of coming back.
Yeah. And when were you diagnosed with the coronavirus?
I think sometime during May.
And how long would you say it took you from the first symptoms on to recover?
I mean, I don't know. I just lost the symptoms of losing the taste and smell. Those kind of came back just like recently, like a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so it's even been a few months to completely recover.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Let's go on to the next questions here. So, how are you managing day-to-day activities in your household with the pandemic going on as far as grocery shopping and things like that?
When I go grocery shopping, I just try to keep away from people. Always wear a mask. My home life haven't or hasn't really changed because of it. Just watch TV when I'm at home, or I don't know, take dog on a walk.
Right. So that kind of leads into the other question I had is how it's been affecting you and your family's day-to-day activities. Seeing family, maybe not as much if they have a scare or something like that. Have you experienced anything like that at all?
Yeah, definitely. When I had COVID, I was trying to keep away from everyone.
And how did that make you feel?
I was glad to be away from them, knowing that they wouldn't get sick from me, but it kind of sucked not seeing them.
Is anybody in your family particularly suspectable that you wouldn't want to expose? Maybe they're older or anything like that?
Oh yeah, definitely my mom, just because she's kind of a little bit older.
Right. And were you scared of potentially transmitting the virus to her at all?
Yeah, for sure.
And what was it like after you recovered and you were able to see your family and everything like that?
It was nice. I still tried to keep away from them just a little bit, just to make sure that they wouldn't come into contact with it.
Okay. Well, how has the COVID-19 outbreak affected how you associate and communicate with friends and family?
Definitely just trying to keep away from friends and just while everything's going on, especially because I know a few that had got COVID.
Yeah, and have you noticed any shift in the people that you know, maybe your friends who are closer to your own age? Maybe they had a similar stance to you where they didn't maybe take it as seriously, but now they are, or maybe they think it's a hoax or anything like that. Do you have any thoughts on what your friends have been like during this whole pandemic?
I don't have any friends that think it's a hoax, but I have a few that definitely don't take it as serious as they should.
Okay. Can you give me a couple examples of how they're not taking it as seriously as they maybe should be?
Just going out whenever they feel like, or just, I don't know, going to places that aren't a necessity.
And have you tried to talk to them about it at all, or is it maybe a touchy subject where you don't want to step on their toes and tell them what they should be doing?
Yeah, I try to talk to them a little bit about it, but I don't try to be a nag about it, I guess.
So, what have you, your family, and friends done for recreation during COVID-19? Feel free to include details about the shows you've been enjoying, any games you've been playing, books you've been enjoying, pretty much anything like that. You can give me all the details about that.
Probably just either reading or watching TV is the main part of it. Just trying to stay outside or stay from going outside.
And is there any particular shows or anything like that that you and your family have been enjoying?
Mm, Billy on the Street.
No, can you tell me about that show?
It's Billy Eichner running around New York and yelling at people.
Okay. And yes, I believe I've heard of that show as well. So I believe that they may have an issue filming that show on the streets of New York due to the pandemic. Um, does that make you feel sad or anything like that? That something that you enjoy has also been impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, a little sad, but I don't want Billy to get harmed.
Definitely understandable. Well, that goes into media and everything like that with a lot of movies and shows and things like that have been halting filming altogether due to the coronavirus. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm just glad everyone's staying away. But yeah, it is a little sad to not have those shows going on and everything like that.
Right. Is there any shows that you typically look forward to or entertainment of any kind that you usually look forward to, maybe around this time of year, but it's just not happening because of the coronavirus?
Mm, Not particularly.
Okay. So, how has the COVID-19 outbreak affected your community?
Mm, I think in Chippewa, like people are still going out to bars. People are still not wearing masks. So I don't know. I feel like most people here don't take it as serious.
And what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a smart idea.
Can you elaborate on that and tell me why?
Just because that it can cause the spread, and I don't know. It just not a good idea in general to be going around when people are getting sick.
Right. And when you maybe go out to get groceries or anything like that, do you see people not wearing masks, or is it typically they're following the guidelines that have been set?
They wear their mask, but sometimes they'll not wear it over their nose and they'll have it under it.
Okay. Definitely. And how are the people around you responding to the COVID-19 pandemic?
I feel like most people in general are taking it serious, but there's still some people that think it's a hoax and it's just not real at all, which I don't think is a good idea to spread that information.
Right. And have you heard anybody talking about that? And if they are talking about it, do you know what sources they might be using for that information?
Just mostly like articles on Facebook and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what, like, where the articles are from, but just mostly on Facebook.
So have you seen the people around you change their opinions of their day-to-day activities or their relationships in response to the pandemic?
Some people, yeah, but some people can be really stubborn about it.
Is there anybody in your family that is not really wanting to adhere to guidelines or even believe that the pandemic is a real threat?
My mom at first, but then she kind of started to take it more serious when I got it.
What was her reaction to you getting the coronavirus?
I think she was more surprised, if anything, and just wanted to keep away from me at the moment.
But she did show concern for you and kind of maybe realize that the virus may be more serious than she originally thought.
Oh, yeah, she did when I got it.
And has anybody else around you gotten the coronavirus?
Just a couple of my friends.
And how did they respond to getting the coronavirus?
They took it pretty serious. They tried to stay inside and only hang out with their roommates and just not go out in public at all.
So, self isolation and flattening the curve have been two key ideas that have emerged during the pandemic. How have you, your family, friends, and community responded to the request to self isolate and to flatten the curve?
Well, we only tried to go out in public when we needed to, like when we went to the grocery store or like doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So just only necessities.
And have you seen any larger community response to the coronavirus pandemic as far as announcements from your city officials or anything like that?
I know Chippewa and Eau Claire, they like had a self quarantine. I don't know if it was a law, but they like requested that people stay in their homes and just try to keep to themselves.
So I know that you mentioned that you did get the coronavirus. So after you recovered, did you change your habits in any way to make sure that maybe you didn't get it again, even though we don't know if you would have immunity now? But have your patterns changed in any way day to day since you've recovered?
Not really. I pretty much been keeping the same habits the whole time. Like ever since they announced it, I've just been trying to keep to myself, I guess.
Okay. Can you take me through a average day in your life? Maybe what you do beginning to end in a average day during the pandemic?
Wake up, go to work and Walmart, and then just come home pretty much. Like I said, I don't really do much during the day when I'm quarantined. Watch TV, I guess.
Okay. In what ways do you think COVID-19 is impacting people's mental and physical health?
I don't feel like it's very good for the mental and physical health when you're not socially interacting with people and just staying in your own thoughts, I guess.
Right. And have the people around you expressed anything about their mental health maybe suffering during this time?
Mm, not so far, no, not really.
And do you think if they were suffering, it would be something that they would want to share? Do you think most people may be suffering more internally without sharing that?
Yeah, I feel like it's more internal.
Has your mental or physical health been impacted at all by the coronavirus? Other than, of course, I know you said that you did have the coronavirus, but other than that, after you recovered, have you noticed any other physical symptoms or how are you dealing mental health wise with the pandemic?
I've been doing pretty good. I've been trying to just um, keep clear of bad mental situations, I guess. Trying to be aware of it first and foremost.
Well, I see you have a dog there.
Yeah.
How have you been interacting with him during the pandemic?
When I got it, I was trying to keep away from him because I wasn't sure or not if dogs could get it, but it's kind of hard to keep away from the dog.
And have you still been going on walks and things like that? I know you had mentioned that you do enjoy doing that.
Yeah, just for his health.
Absolutely. So, have your news sources changed during the course of the pandemic?
No, not entirely. I mean, I've been trying to get more sources and like trying to keep up with everything, like death rates and all that.
And
But
where
no, not really changed.
changed? It hasn't changed much. Well, where do you typically get your news?
Um, Unfortunately, probably Snapchat or I don't know. It's pretty much it. Unfortunately,
So, what do you think are important issues that the media isn't covering during this time?
probably either mental health or just how to like try to keep yourself from wanting to go out.
Right. How do you think they could do a better job at showing the public those things?
Just exposing it on more medias and news networks and stuff like that.
So, how do you feel that the government has been responding to the outbreak? Do you think they've done enough? Do you think that things could be going better? How do you think the government has handled this so far in America?
I feel like at first they weren't doing it well or taking it as serious as they should, but I feel like they put like pretty good like restrictions and I don't know. I guess they could just like close down bars if that would be possible.
And is that more on a local level, government wise, that you're seeing that they maybe weren't taking it as seriously, but you see more restrictions over time?
Yeah, definitely locally.
Right. And how do you feel about the government on a wider scale from the messages that we get from the Senate and from the White House and things like that? How do you feel about the national government on a larger level handling the pandemic?
I feel like like I said at first they weren't taking it as seriously or exposing the information as they should, but I feel like now like people are pretty much just aware of everything that's going on and it's more of a personal decision.
And how do you feel about the president's handling of the pandemic as far as him saying that masks don't work and things like that?
I feel like it's not a good idea to spread that information just because he influences so many people and they'll just believe whatever he says and spread that information among their groups.
Right. And has anybody you know been influenced by the president and what he said about the coronavirus?
Not really, because everyone I know that likes him still wears a mask, or I feel like they don't believe what he's saying about Corona. But
Okay. And how do you feel like the local government and the larger national government could improve on their handling of the pandemic?
just try to keep it like scientifical and not political. Just put out science fact or scientific facts and not based on your political opinions.
And do you think it would be a good idea for us to continue with the coronavirus task force just nationally?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just with any type of sickness, I feel like it's good to wear a mask when you're sick or constantly wash your hands.
And that's interesting too. with hygiene, I know a lot of people have said that they have changed the rate of hand washing and things like that during the pandemic. How have your hygiene habits changed during the pandemic?
Mostly still the same. Like I pretty much always been washing my hands, or whenever I'm sick, I try not to go in public. Haven't been ever, or I haven't really ever worn a mask out in public whenever I'm sick though. So I guess that's the main thing, the mask.
Right. And whenever this pandemic ends, do you think that we're going to have a new culture around sickness where even if you have the average flu or something like that, if you have to go out in public, people are going to be wearing masks more? Or do you think it will be something that we kind of leave in the past?
I feel like they might be more aware of it and think of it more than they would before, but I don't know if they'll actually do those things.
So, how has your experience with the coronavirus transformed how you think about your family, friends, and your communities?
I try to change their minds and have them take it more seriously. Like when my mom wasn't taking it as serious, I tried to explain to her that she should.
Yeah, can you tell me how that conversation went?
It went pretty well. It went pretty well. It wasn't like, I don't know. It just went pretty well.
What was her stance at the beginning of the conversation?
She didn't really bel like she believed in it, but she didn't believe it was as serious as it was, or that the numbers were as high as they were.
And what did you say to her to get her to kind of change her mind on that?
I think it was just me getting sick that changed her mind.
So that was the main thing, was her son getting the coronavirus made her realize that it was a little bit more serious than she thought.
Yeah.
And did she do anything to help you when you had the coronavirus, or was it more of a situation where you just tried to stay away from each other?
Yeah, I'm also just trying to stay away from her. I mean, she bought me groceries once and then left them on my steps, but that was pretty much it.
And have your relationships with your friends changed in any similar ways as with your mom, with any conversations you may have had?
No, not really with my friends. Just my mom.
So, knowing what you know now with the coronavirus pandemic, what do you think that individuals need to do in the future to maybe prevent another pandemic, or if another pandemic happened, how do you think individuals should respond?
I feel like they should just take it more serious and try to stay away from people, keep their distance, and just stay in good hygiene.
What do you think is the biggest reason people may not do those things?
Maybe it's like a money issue or they just don't believe it at all.
And have you seen any local examples of people disregarding the pandemic completely, or maybe just some of the guidelines at all?
I don't know about locally, but I know people have been like protesting against the pandemic and the like all the regulations and the mask laws and all that. Not laws, but just regulations.
Right. And where are you originally from? Are you originally from Wisconsin?
No, Michigan.
Okay, where in Michigan?
A couple places, Kalamazoo, and then Ki Sawyer.
Well, I know you had mentioned the protests against the pandemic, and I know a lot of those were happening in Michigan. So, how did you feel seeing those protests going on in your home state?
I was a little disappointed.
How do you think the citizens in Michigan who protested, how they should have handled that?
I just feel like they shouldn't have protested at all, just because they were all really close together. They weren't 6 feet apart. just overall wasn't a good idea.
So, how do you feel about the total number of cases and deaths, both nationally and in Wisconsin?
I feel like it is extremely high and definitely could have been way lower if we handled it more serious.
And do you believe that the pandemic may level off soon, or do you think we're going to just keep rising?
I feel like if people take it seriously, we'll level it off and lower the rates. But I feel like if people keep doing what they're doing, no.
Right. How likely do you think it is that the numbers will start to go down?
I feel like it could be pretty likely. It's possible.
And do you think with the recent election of Joe Biden as presidential elect, do you think that his administration is going to do anything to improve the numbers, or do you think they're going to stay the same?
I feel like for the most part, yeah, they'll try to keep it low. I feel like they might have more regulations and
What
try to
about,
put out. Oh, my
go
bad.
ahead.
I just feel like they might put out more information about it and try to spread more information about like keeping home and stuff like that.
Right. So I had seen that they may be doing some more stay-at-home orders when President presidential elect Biden goes into the White House. How do you feel about potentially being required to be staying at home through stay-at-home orders?
I mean, for me, it doesn't personally affect me that much just because I've already been trying to do that. But I feel like it's a good idea.
So with the recent election that went on, do you think that the political climate has been impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I feel like people are trying to be separate about it, and it's more of a political thing with the pandemic.
How do you feel about the pandemic becoming politicized?
I feel like it's really dumb and unnecessary just because it's a sickness and a disease.
Do you have any further thoughts on that?
Mm. Not really. I just feel like it's not a good idea to politicalize a disease.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of the political divide, do you know people on different sides of the political aisle that think differently about the pandemic?
Yeah, some people at work are really outward on their thoughts about it. At first, they really didn't take it as serious or they thought it was a hoax and just kept spreading information that wasn't true.
What was some information that you heard from coworkers?
Mostly just that it was fake or that the numbers weren't as high as they were.
And did they provide any evidence for that at all?
No.
Okay, so it was more of an anecdotal thing where they didn't believe in the numbers and things like that.
Yes.
So I know you said that at your job you now have to get your temperature tested. Did you say that that was every time that you go into work?
Yes.
Okay, and how does that feel? Just having to get your temperature taken whenever you go in for a shift?
I feel like it's a good idea. It doesn't make me feel any like certain type of way other than more safe about going into work.
And have any of your coworkers expressed any kind of annoyance or anything at having to get their temperature taken or anything like that?
No, not particularly.
Are you required to get tested at all at your job, or do you only get tested if you're showing symptoms?
Yeah, only if you're showing symptoms.
Overall, how do you think the American consciousness is going to shift after the pandemic as far as how we look at sickness?
I feel like for the most part, people are going to take sickness more seriously rather than just going out in public when they're sick or going into work when they're sick.
Have you noticed the shift in anybody you know maybe taking regular illnesses more seriously now?
Yeah, for the most part, I just feel like whenever they're sick, they usually just get a COVID test and try to self isolate.
And how do you think the healthcare system is going to be impacted by the coronavirus as far as testing being available for more diseases or anything like that?
I feel like it's definitely going to be flooded with like a lot of tests and a lot of people wanting treatment, which is good for the people, but it might be a little heavy on like the nurses and doctors and everything.
Absolutely. Well, as far as the healthcare system goes, as far as the vaccine, we've been hearing that that might be coming sooner rather than later. So once a vaccine is developed and released for the coronavirus, do you think you would want to take it?
I feel like if it was proven that it worked, yeah, I would definitely want to take it.
Do you think the people in your community, your parents and your friends would be willing to get the vaccine?
I I don't feel like people in Chippewa would really want to take it just because they're more, I don't know, like anti-mask and everything like that. But I feel like for the most part, yeah, people would be down for that.
Do you have any wider thoughts about the coronavirus globally across the world?
I don't know. I feel like America at first definitely wasn't taking it that serious. Like we still had bars and clubs open and a lot of restaurants. And like I know in other countries they pretty much shut down everything. Their rates were like way lower.
Right. And in your community in Chippewa, is there still a lot of bars and restaurants and things open?
Yeah, I don't see any bars that are closed.
Do you often see a lot of people going there?
I feel like the rate is lower, but I still see a high amount of people there. Yeah,
Does that concern you at all?
yeah, a little bit.
What concerns do you have?
Just people getting sick and people in my community having the sickness, and then my family getting it.
And how do you think the local government could handle that as far as closing things? Do you think that would be appropriate?
Yeah, I feel like they could definitely shut down restaurants and bars and things that aren't like essential.
Great. Well, we've covered pretty much all of my questions. Did you have any closing thoughts at all?
I just hope that everything gets back to normal, but also with being safe and making sure that we can't spread it anymore.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to take us to get there?
I feel like it might take a while.
Do you have a rough estimate of how long you think it might take?
Mm, Not necessarily, but I just feel like maybe like a year or two.
And how do you feel mentally preparing for another year or two of the coronavirus?
I've been preparing for it, trying to.
Yeah, in what ways are you preparing for the coronavirus to keep going and the pandemic to keep going?
Just trying to stay safe and busy and just not, I don't know, just not be bored all the time, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with the coronavirus. Did you have anything else?
No, not necessarily.
Well, thank you so much for being interviewed for this archive, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.